Hello, everyone. My name is PapaNeeks, and welcome to my series where we take a look at a game that has either caught my interest or something that I like to play kind of on my off-camera free time, or something that I perhaps have just started to get into that I have taken an interest in and feel like sharing with you guys, especially if perhaps it's either very well known or somewhat well known or should get more attention. And today, I thought we should take a look at a game that I have heard a lot of great things about. It has not been out too long. I think it came out, 2017, if I recall? And it's Divinity Original Sin 2. I have heard many saying that this is one of the best RPGs ever. I believe it falls into the category of CRPG, and a lot of people have just been absolutely raving and praising this game a lot, and I can absolutely see why. Now, for the record, I have not really gotten that far into the game myself. I haven't left Fort Joy yet, as I've mainly just kind of been messing around with it a bit here and there, testing out different things, different characters, kind of trying to decide who I really want to play as. And what I love about this is that there is so much variety and choices and just various different things that you can do with this. And a lot of different results and choices, to the point where I feel like I have to look up a walkthrough or a guide to try and figure out, one, what I'm supposed to do, two, what the different choices or results can be, because based on what I've already been experiencing, you can absolutely fail various different things or just do things wrong, and it'll just be like, oh, it's failed, or, it'll complete as a failed quest or something like that. So there's a lot of different things you can do with this. For good and bad. I've heard that this is another one of those games that does give you the options to decide who you want your character to be. If you actually want to be a hero, or if you want to even be a villain type of character. Again, I have not experienced that myself personally yet, as I haven't really gotten that far into the game. But just, the initial stuff has just been really impressing me, just with the incredible amount of things that you can do with this. Now, we're going to be taking a look at this, though I should preface it that I have also been experimenting with mods, because, as I have found, it seems that this game is very mod-friendly. If you want to see here, this is the PC version, which I have on Steam. This is developed, I believe, by Larian Studios, which has done the previous game in this series, which I did not play. They also did another game that I've been messing around with called Dragon Commander, which has been pretty fun, though I haven't gotten that far into that game yet either. Again, this is stuff I've gotten to lightly, and I want to do more with it. So these are some of the mods that I've kind of been finding and messing around with, though it's worth noting some of these things that were made before they added this gift bag feature that lets you be able to take advantage of some of these things on your own. A lot of the mods here are mainly just kind of like adding more classes and other things like that, just to add more variety to the gameplay. So what's also interesting is the various different game modes. This is not just a story thing. There's also Arena. There's Game Master, if you want to try and have multiple buddies and do kind of like a D&D session with this game. It seems like that's the way you can go with that. I haven't messed with that yet personally yet because, well, I don't know if I'm going to have anyone to play these games with. But you can be able to do multiplayer, because you can do this completely co-op. You can play through the campaign, the story. At least I think you can do so co-op. And there's different modes you can do. You can do Explorer mode, just going around exploring. If you want to do more difficult stuff, there's Classic mode, Tactician mode. And then there's Story mode, which is someone for, like myself, where I'm here for the fun and the fantasy, but not a rigorous challenge. So, also, it's worth noting, if you use add-ons and mods, it will disable achievements. So if that's something you do care about, keep that in mind. That's not necessarily something I care about that much, unless it's something that's directly tied to, say, unlocking something, like in Total War Warhammer 3, where you need an achievement, in order to unlock a legendary lord to play. But if that's not really the case, then as far as I know, there isn't an achievement like that in this, to the point where I don't really care about achievements in this kind of game that much. So yeah, let's go ahead and do mods and have some fun. So this loading screen is going to take a little while because of the add-ons. So I will be back once the loading screen is over. Alright, so here we are at the character creation screen, and what's really interesting and awesome about this is that you're not necessarily just creating a custom character here. You can, but you also can be able to play from one of 6 different characters that will be either playable or part of your character's party. So, and you can tell which ones they are because they have these things called these origin stories. So you'll have these 6 different characters here that you can be able to select. I'll show play those in a moment, but then you can go over here to custom, and you'll be able to select back and forth between what type of custom character you want, depending on what race you want to play, what gender you want to play, and if you play one of these, you'll get the other 6 characters available to select. Now, in the base game, you can only have 3 party members and up to a total party of 4. However, I have a mod that actually allows me to have up to a maximum of 10 in the party, though as far as I can tell, in my initial time playing the game, there's really no reason to increase it up to 10, unless there's any times where that can become the case, but I'll find that out later. Custom lizard, custom undead dwarf, undead elf, undead human, undead lizard. So yeah, there's a number of different things that you can do here. I'll go over the classes in a moment, but first let me introduce you to the characters that we get to have either as playable characters or characters that we can interact with. First, let's meet the Red Prince.
Famed, of course, for my unique red skin and unparalleled skills as a general of the House of War, I, the Red Prince, was raised within the vast palaces of the fabled Forbidden City. I was destined to become the next emperor. But my ambitions suffered a bit of a setback when I fell from grace for cavorting with demons. Now, I'm exiled and hunted by assassins. But I assure you, I remain undaunted and as determined as ever to claim my rightful throne.
So, I want to give a shout out to that voice actor. That's Harry Haddon Patton. And gosh, he's awesome. So he also, here's the hilarious part. Lorraine Studios made this game, but they also made Divinity Dragon Commander. And as you can see, lizards are a known race in this setting. Well, in Dragon Commander, you get to have a lizard general, or let me say that again. You get to have someone who is a lizard who is also one of your generals as part of your forces. And that lizard general, his name is Edmund, he's also voiced by the same guy. And he has this same very uppity, superior, aristocratic British tone to him, where, yes, I am vastly superior to you. But what's awesome about this character and this voice actor is that he's not snobby or incredibly malicious about it. He does have that kind of uptight, superior kind of thing to him, but he's not horrible about it. He's actually can be very civil and polite. It's actually rather endearing, and I just find myself really loving this character, but also especially this voice actor. But yeah, he's actually, from what I can tell, a very interesting and likable character. And whether you play as him or have him in your party, I highly recommend so far from the time I've been experiencing with this character. I really, really like the Red Prince. This is Sabille.
I used to be a slave, kept under the thumb of the master, the bastard that made me hunt down my own kin. How did he do that, you ask? With the living scar you see on my cheek, this horror that takes no more than a song sung by Master Dearest to control my very thoughts. But now the tables have turned. I broke my shackles, and when I finally find him, I will make the Master sing a very different kind of song.
One of the things I like about whether or not you choose to play as one of these characters or not is that you'll get something that's kind of unique to that character and kind of ties in. One of the examples is that if you choose to play as Sabine, you will get a couple things. You'll get a dagger or like a special needle in your inventory that she uses, throughout the game. You'll also get an option for have her look at her tattoos and such on her arms, some of which have history. But that's stuff that's unique to Sabine, and really only if you're playing as Sabine. This is Ivan Ben Mezd, I think.
Once I was a crusader for the Divine Order. I pledged my life to Lucian the Divine. The war changed everything. He sent me to save the elves I grew up amongst. I arrived too late. Lucian ordered the use of death fog against the Black Ring, annihilating everyone I once knew in the process. Now I'm a mercenary killer, one of the infamous Lone Wolves. And my next target is none other than Lucian's own son.
I've heard different things about this character. I've heard some think he's kind of boring and not very interesting. I've heard some say he's okay. Again, I can't really judge for myself yet because I haven't gotten that far into the game with, to be able to learn more about him. So, but anyways, this is Beast.
Oh. I was just thinking about someone I used to know. My cousin, the Queen, in fact. A tyrant. I tried to stop her, but things don't always go according to plan. She cast me out to a forgotten island, and made short work of my allies, too. Lucky for me, I was able to commandeer a ship, and began a new life for myself. Out on the high seas. Aye, but I hear that the Queen is at it again. And there's something darker behind her madcap schemes this time. If I don't stop her, I don't know who will.
I've heard some people like this guy a bit more than Ivan. Again, not really too much I've heard about this guy. Apparently he's not one of the more interesting ones, just based on some of the people I've heard. This is, I think it's Losa? Lose? I used to think it was Loesch, but yeah. I think it's Losa or Lose.
All my life, I've been a performer, a musician, beloved and celebrated by all. But I have a secret. I'm also a playground for sprites and spirits and worse. The voice that rings inside me now is darker than any that came before. Almost caused a bunch of my fans to rip each other to pieces. But you can trust me. I've got this under control. Step 1. Find out who, or what, is trying to take control of my mind. Step 2. Make it sorry it ever tried.
So yeah, she has some issues, if you can't tell. Even from the initial stuff we encounter with her, yeah, that whole her having to deal with this thing inside her head and such is, yeah. So And then last but certainly not least, Fane. With the bug.
Oh, don't stare. How would you look after eons in some ghastly crypt? Your people are rather prone to death. Mine are not. Yet when I emerged from my completely unjustified imprisonment, I found them gone. Our culture forgotten. Any trace of the world I knew all but obliterated. I must even hide my true face beneath an ever-shifting mask for fear you savages will attack me. That is how I wander this strange world. Trying to uncover the truth about a history you primitive people never even knew existed.
So I've heard a number of people say that if you're wanting the most out of the story, that they recommend that you play as Fane. At least when it comes to, like, say, having an easier time with the game in terms of lowering the difficulty and just getting the most story. And part of the reason for that is because I've heard a couple things about Fane. One, he adds more to the setting and the world building. The other is that some say that he is just outright the protagonist of the story. That's at least what I've heard someone say in regards to that. I don't know how true that is or not, because like I said, I haven't really played through this game in its entirety on my own time yet. It's something I would like to do, but the thing is, what I've heard is that this game is gargantuan and that it takes a long time to do. But he is a character that I am certainly working on trying to play through right now. Even while I'm experimenting with other characters, he has been the one that I've kind of been mainly focusing on based on those recommendations. And I'll explain why, as I was saying, while you've got these 6 characters to play as, and then you can get them in your party, you can also still go ahead and make a custom character, but there are incentives to go ahead and play as one of the other characters as opposed to, say, a custom character. Now, let's go ahead and talk a bit more about the gameplay stuff. So, first off here, you'll get the origin selection if you want to be able to select a certain character. And you'll get a little description here to show this again. And you will get little things here to show that there are certain things that are tied to the character you're playing as, mainly based on your race, such as the Red Prince as a lizard gets something called Dragon's Blaze. Let me just go ahead and double check this. Alright, so yeah. So, Dragon's Blaze is a ability that's unique to lizards, whereas this one here looks like he has Dome of Protection, while the Red Prince has Demonic Stare. And that is that's one of those story gameplay integration things because of his ties to having cavorting with demons, as it says in his origin here. You will also get some certain talents based on usually your race. Like lizards will get Sophisticated, which gives you fire resistance and poison resistance, and Spell Song, +1 in Persuasion. And I think that's the same for this here as well. Yes, it is. So then but compared to say an elf, which has Flesh Sacrifice and Break the Shackles, as well as unique talents for their race, which is Corpse Eater. And this I find so fascinating. It lets you eat body parts to access the memories of the dead. And that's something I just find so fascinating. The idea of if you were to not even just outright eat or digest something, but just like, as she showcases in the story at some point, just simply lick someone's arm, she then can access their memories from, say, the night before. And I just find the idea of that just such a fascinating thing. She also has Ancestral Knowledge, which gives you +1 to Lore Master, which is another different thing, ability and mechanic within this game. There's a lot when it comes to how this game works. Ivan, being a human, gets Encourage, a buff for allies, and Soul Wolf, where he can actually summon his trusty Soul Wolf that can howl and bite enemies, along with Ingenious, Critical Chance and Critical Multiplier, and Thrifty, +1 to Bartering. And you'll notice that Lose has the same thing, other than she has Maddening Song, but she also has Ingenious and Thrifty. Dwarves, like Beast, will get Petrifying Touch, turns the nearby target to stone, and Blinding Squall. He'll also get Sturdy, extra vitality and dodging, and Dwarven Guile, which is +1 in sneaking. So then we get to, say, the classes, and man, there's a lot of classes and such in this game. Now, remember, I'm using mods that added many more, like, to the classes and such. So you're going to see a number of different either classes or subclasses that are kind of mixed in to add to here. But like, there are things such as Battle Mage, which utilizes both warfare and magic. Cleric, which is kind of like a priest, being able to heal allies and such. Conjurer, which is basically like a summoning class. Enchanter, where you can be able to utilize magic like electricity and water. Fighter, kind of a warrior type of class. Inquisitor is kind of a mix between warrior and I guess Necromancer. Knight is another one of those kind of warrior type of classes with just different variations, because you can have things like a fighter or a knight, and it's not necessarily just like one class. It's kind of like a combination of different things. It allows you to just do a number of different customization stuff, where if you want to try combining various different things for a unique type of play for the game, you can be able to go ahead and do that, along with picking up unique stuff such as Metamorph, getting bull horns, chicken claws, tentacle lash. Ranger, being able to have elemental arrowheads and ricochet, compared to, say, Wayfarer, which is also arrowheads, but then you also get pinned down, and Fossil Strike, which is different, from Ranger. Rogue, being able to have backlash and throwing knife, compared to Shadowblade, which has backlash, but then also has chameleon cloak and chicken claw. So there's sort of a kind of a blend, but then there's like variations, and it's just so fascinating to try the stuff like that out. Then you've got other stuff that mods added, such as Dragon Knight, which I found and I thought was really cool. And especially on someone like the Red Prince or Lizard, where he can become a dragon and have other very powerful combat abilities that are play on this idea of a warrior and a dragon kind of together. And then you can get battle mages for various different types of elements. And then you can be able to have like a mage that specializes in electricity magic, or, unlimited power, which, I could see myself doing that, like, playing as Palpatine or something like that. Tempest, Thunderlord, if you want to kind of go with a warrior with using the power of air and electricity and such, almost like you want to play as Thor. I could definitely see that being done. Wind Weaver, Grove Tender, Plague, if you want to. This isn't always the best medicine. The Plague, know that a deadly concoction always does the trick. Contamination, Noxious Touch, Poison Darts, Sentinels, Terramancers. This was another one I found. These are supposed to be like overhauls of some of the things that you can be able to do in the game with the gameplay and the classes, like Atlantean, Frost Warren. This is straight up, as it says, a Frost Paladin, specializing in magic armor and freezing effects. And the image they had associated with this was the Lich King. As in, Wrath of the Lich King with the armor and such. And I thought, oh my gosh, yes. Believe it or not, I've made a custom human character doing this, and I named him Arthas. And then there's like a straight up ice or water mage, like either Ice Vein or Tidecaller, which you could say, if you want to play as Jaina, here you go. And then we have some other ones like Blood Tide, which is kind of, and Death Lord, which specializes in doing decay. You can see it falls under the category of Necromancer there at the bottom of the screen. Gravecaller, Hexen, just various little variations and subcategories of these things. Arsonist, if you want to go like with a fire mage. Pyrokinetic is another category. Phoenix or Scorcher, so if you want to play as Kael'thas. Spectre, wickedly cruel and equally powerful. Spectres use soul magic to blur the line between life and death. This is something I'm actually going to try out and see what it's like. Then you got Wizard, which if you want to have them just kind of like, try out a variety of different things, you can do that. Void Knight, which I found, I was like, oh man, you know, a warrior that can use the power of the void. That sounds kind of interesting. And then Umbra, what seems to be kind of like an interesting kind of variation on the idea of a rogue or a shadow blade. So it's something I haven't tried out yet, but it's something I'm curious about how it's going to work. So with these different forms, like switch between order and chaos forms, it definitely encourages me to want to actually try out creating other characters and then trying out these different kinds of classes. And it gets really interesting. So after you select your origin of who you want to play, like so let's say if I want to play as the Red Prince, then I can be able to go here and I can go ahead and start working on customizing him, since he will be his default here in the game if you don't play as him. But if I'm playing as him, then I can go ahead and still change up his appearance. Now I can't change his skin color because he's the Red Prince. He has to stay red. That's part of his, you know, the thing about his character. But I can still like change his face to various different things to mess around with his appearance if I want. So hairstyle, his hair color, facial features. Can't change his voice because he is a character. Now again, if you want to say do something more unique, well then you can go to say a custom lizard, and then I will be able to actually go ahead and change his skin color, as you can see here, to various different colors to mess around with that. And of course I can do different voices here.
Nice try. Greet the Reaper for me. Meet your maker. Meet your maker. I'm ready.
My only complaint is that there's only a few voices that you can do here. I would love it if they had done a variety of extra different voices here for you to choose from for your custom characters, because it does feel very limiting that there's only like 4 or 5 here. But that's, you know, that's just kind of how it is. So after you're done with your appearance, you can then go ahead and start working on if you want to change your mind on what type of class you want to play. You know, let's say if I want to play as a ranger, then you can start working on what type of, you know, attributes, whether it be strength, which increases your damage based on, you know, with strength-based weapons and skills. If you want to utilize finesse, with the, you know, intelligence, constitution for your health, memory with the memory slots to learn skills, and wits, which deals with critical chance and stuff like that. Then you can also mess around with your abilities. I mentioned some of those categories, such as warfare, if you want to be more of a warrior, huntsman for ranger stuff, scoundrel for rogues, pyrokinetic for fire mages, hydro sophist. This is what falls under that category of ice mage and frostsworn, kind of a combination of hydro and warfare in that regard. Arrow for utilizing the power, doing air damage. Geomancer, doing poison and earth damage. Necromancer heals when you deal damage directly to vitality or summoning, using the dead. And then of course summoning, if you just want to summon minions and such. Then there's craftsmanship, telekinesis, move things around regardless of their weight. Lore Master lets you identify enemies and allows you to identify items as well. Sneaking and thievery, those kind of speak for themselves. Personality, things like bartering to get better prices at the vendors. Persuasion, if you want to do dialogue checks and such. And then Lucky Charm to increase finding extra treasure whenever you find loot. Things like that. And then you can be able to go ahead and mess around with skills based on what class you decide to play. You can be able to see that this is from the Huntsman ability, this is from Pyrokinetic, and it's really based on what type of class that you want to play. So if you say, because I picked that class before over here with the Ranger, that's why it showed that. But if I went to Rogue, then it changes and shows this is from the Scoundrel ability. If I decide to go instead for a Dragon Knight, it shows that that's from the Warfare ability. If I go, as I was saying, to the Frostsworn and want to actually do like an Arthas Lich King type of thing, this is from Hydro, which utilizes Armor of Frost and Rain and Hail Strike. I think you get the point. So that's where some of that really cool, fun stuff can come into play. Then you can be able to go ahead and mess around with what talents do you want. You get certain talents based on what your class or your race is. But if you take certain ones, you can't have others. So you'll see here, for example, I can't say what's one that conflicts? Ah, here we go. I can't get the demon talent because it is incompatible with Ice King, because this gives us extra fire resistance, but it takes extra penalty to water resistance. And max fire resistance is raised by 10. So you would get this if you played a Fire Mage, but you don't get this if you play as a Frostsworn. Compared to, say, if you play Frostsworn, then you get Ice King, which gives you more water resistance, but you take a penalty to fire resistance. So you can see where some of those things come to play here. And there's various different kinds of talents here. There's a Lone Wolf one. This is so interesting. And I don't know if I'd ever want to do this because I like having all the people in my party. But this basically gives you buffs if you decide to actually play by yourself. But again, that's like if you're, I guess, not wanting to get the most out of the story or whatever the case may be. So then you have tags, which also plays a role into your story and what kind of dialogue options you can be able to get. Now, certain pre-characters, you'll notice here I only have Lizard and Male, which plays a role in what thing you can do. Now, let's say if I instead decide to play as the Red Prince, well, then you go to tags and you'll see I already have Red Prince. He is his own separate tag. Plus, he's also a noble and a scholar. It's part of his story, so he can't be able to select those. But if I instead go back and select a regular lizard, I can then choose which of these tags I would want to have as part of my story. So there's, a kind of a give and take kind of thing if you want to play as one of those other pre-origin characters or if you want to play as your own custom character. I have no idea what instruments does here. It's like, select your origin instrument. I'm like, what? The thing is, I have no idea what the difference is between these. Like, I'm just picking these, but it doesn't seem to make a difference. It doesn't say, if you choose this instrument, you get this. Like, it doesn't seem to matter one way or the other. So, it's rather unfortunate in that regard. So, yeah, that's kind of a look at how the character creation. So, there's so much when it comes to looking at this game that I can't really do this in just one video. So, I'm going to cut it off here. And when we come back, we're going to do the next part. I'm going to show you what it's like in the game from the perspective of a origin character and from a custom character. So stay tuned for that.